All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started right at the top of the hour. This is going to be Tech Thursdays, episode 152. We're going to be talking about CPUs on this stream because there's been a lot of leaks. There's a lot of leaks that have come out this week regarding the Ryzen 9 9950X 3D2, or as everyone seems to be calling it, the D2. And the other thing we're going to talk about is Intel. We might actually spend most of the stream talking about Intel because there's a lot of leaks that have come out about Intel's Nova Lake CPUs. And though there's a lot to unpack there because I feel like LGA 1954 is going to be pretty interesting. So it looks like Intel's got some really interesting stuff in the works slated to launch later this year. So, but let's start off with AMD first because the Ryzen D2 is going to be available as of April 22nd. I don't know if that means you can go and buy one from Newegg or something on the 22nd. I assume you can. I don't actually know if that's the true launch day. I guess they kind of tweeted that it was. But as you guys can see here, available April 22nd for $899. So it looks like there were some leaked benchmarks. There was some leaked product listings for the D2, the dual edition X3D on both. This is going to be a 16-core, 32-thread, similar to the 9950X, except this one has the 3D V-cache on both CCDs compared to the regular X3D, which has the V-cache on both, or on a single CCD, on a slower CCD. So this one's going to be really interesting. I assume this is going to have the highest binned silicon. So this is kind of like a KS for the Ryzen 9, similar to how the 9850 X3D that launched back in January, if you remember that CPU, the Ryzen 7 9850 X3D, that one was kind of like a golden sample, highest binned. That's the reason why it took so long for it to come out, because typically that's how these things work. So the 9950 X3D2 is probably going to be similar. I think this one's going to be interesting. I don't know how well it'll overclock because it has the 3D cache on both CCDs. I remember the 9950 X3D was fun to overclock because you could overclock per CCD. So you could push the fast CCD, the one that didn't have the 3D V-cache, you could push that one up to like 5.9 gigahertz, for example. So you get some really good single thread numbers. And then you could use like asynchronous mode, base clock overclocking to get the 3D one up a little bit higher. So this one, I don't know how the overclocking approach is going to go with this one. It'll be interesting to see the potential of this because I'm assuming this is a golden sample chip. Like it's the best binned dies with 3D V-cache. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to hit the sort of clocks that it's hitting, because if you look, the clock speed, 5.6 gigahertz. 5.6 gigahertz on a 3D V-cache CCD is very high frequency for something like that. So it'll be interesting to see the overclocking headroom on this. I am really, really tempted to get one, but I don't know if I can get one at launch. I will see if I can. I did buy the Intel Arc Pro B70. You know, that cost me like $950 from Micro Center, plus tax, minus 5% for Micro Center Insider. So I still ended up paying under $1,000 for the B70, but that's a very expensive graphics card. This is priced very similar to that, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get one of these at launch. I really, really want one, though, just to play around with it and overclock it, just because it is a new CPU. As a tech enthusiast, I like these sort of things. But I don't know. There was another article here, somewhere here, let me find it. Benchmarks Surface ahead of launch.
Have a look at the Raj equalizer. I will run my 5090 at 800W on a 2000W BIOS daily once that comes out.
I don't know about that, man. I don't. The reason why I wouldn't do that personally is because I don't trust the 12-volt high power connector. I do not trust the quality of the pins because they're so small. They're so physically small. I wouldn't run it over. I personally don't want to run it over 450 watts. But yeah, I mean, I guess for overclocking, for like record setting, maybe you could try 800 watts. I would not dare to do that. Not on a card that doesn't have dual 12 volt high power. I just think it's too risky to do something like that. Even if you have the power supply that will shut off if it detects overcurrent on one of the pins, I just still wouldn't do it for durability, reliability reasons. So yeah, I'm not gonna bother looking into that just because I don't want to run the risk of messing up my card. The other thing too is the way I have my computer set up. So the 5090 that I am using right now, it is using what power supply is it using? It's using one of the power supplies that doesn't have the sensor. So I don't have anything. I have no safeties built into it other than ASUS's monitoring tool. So I don't trust it. I really don't trust that connector. I basically what I'm saying is I'm not set up to do that. With like all kinds of safety features. I don't have any of them. The only thing I have is literally the ROG tweak to monitor if one of the pins is going red. So, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to run it at 800 watts to 2000 watts, but I would not run it on a 2000 watt VBIOS. I just don't trust it. The connector's too much of a hazard, in my opinion. But if you are doing that, like, are you running it at an 800 watt power limit? No, I'm not gonna bother with any of that stuff. I just run mine at like 450 watt TDP, unless the NVIDIA app messed it up and made it go back to 600. But I've basically ran mine power limited since I got it at a maximum of 450 watts. Which is probably why I don't have to worry about anything melting. But I also have the ROG tweak. So that's how I run mine. But other people can do whatever they want. It is a cable that does pin balancing. The what? What, wire view? Yeah, I'm not going to bother with any of that stuff. Because, from my opinion, I only run manufactured, like the cables that come with the power supplies, that's what I use. I don't know if I trust any of the other third-party things. Because all the cable mod stuff, I don't trust any of that. I don't use any cable mod. I don't know if I trust any of the ROG equalizer. What is that? It's like another thing. Yeah, those third-party tools, I prefer not to use those. I mean, that's just how I typically do things. This is this is every Thursday, hence the name, Tech Thursdays. But it's still like a third-party cable though, right? No, what I do is I get the cable that comes with a power supply, and I use that, and that's all I use. Basic stuff. Very, very basic stuff. Yeah, I don't think there's a way to do pin balancing. You would need a really, really big circuit. You would need you would need something that's about as big as this Wii controller to actually do load balancing, because you'd have to have a bunch of a bunch of variable resistors to actually do that. So I don't know. I'd have to look into that, but so far I don't trust any third-party connector. Even if it's ASUS, I do not trust it. I do not trust it. It has to come from the power supply manufacturer. I know ASUS sells power supplies, so that's fine. But any sort of third-party dongle that goes in there, I don't wire view, all that stuff. I don't trust any of that stuff. You're adding, because what you're doing when you do that is you're adding additional points of failure along the circuit, because you're putting more, you're essentially adding more of those Molex pins in line with the circuit, with the electric flow, the current flow, and I don't like that. So, I don't know. The way I have it set up, I have high airflow cooling over the connector, both on the power supply side and on the graphics card side. And I run the 5090 no more than 450 watt TDP. I literally limit it to, I think 75% power limit all the time. That's how I run mine. It's powerful enough to do what I need it to do at 4K gaming, so I don't really bother to push it. To me, it's not a card that I would dare overclocking, just because of that connector. If it didn't use that connector, I would definitely overclock it. Like if it had standard 8 pins, like triple 8 pins, or quad 8 pins, dude, I would definitely run the 2000 watt, but because it has that single, if it had two 12 volt high power, so like, 300 watt on one, 300 watt on another, you could do 450 on each. So there you go. Now you're at 900 watts. So yeah, I would trust that. But a single 12 volt high power connector, I ain't doing it. I'm not going to risk it. No. So that's my opinion on it. You guys, if you want to dare to overclock it, go ahead. But I don't recommend it. I'm not doing it. So anyway, going back to this D2. So someone has tested a D2 with air cooling on a, what is their setup here? So they're using 32 gigabytes of memory, which is undersized for this type of CPU. Typically, you need 64 gigabytes of memory to be paired up with a CPU like this. That would be what I would recommend, if not more. But that would be kind of the recommended number. 48 would be kind of the minimum, but even then, that's still kind of undersized. So it's kind of undersized, but it's fine for benchmarking. And then they have a ROG Strix B850 gaming Wi-Fi. The D2 has appeared early. It says it's got, 38,579 points in Cinebench R23. I'm not familiar with Cinebench 26 or 2026, so I don't know what these numbers mean. They're not relevant to me. But yeah, 38,579 is a very good result for a dual X3D chip, because dual X3D, the X3D Vcache doesn't allow the CPU to boost as aggressively as one that doesn't have the cache. So 38,579, I can tell you that's faster than a 7950X. That's faster than a 13900K. And maybe a 14900K, I don't remember. With the voltage nerfs to the 14900K, I think this is faster than a 14900K. So by a little bit in multi-thread. So that's pretty good. It doesn't win against the 9950X. I think the 9950X is more like 42,000, 41, somewhere around there. So, but remember, that's doing 5.7. This is 5.6, and when you're doing all core, it's not going to be doing 5.6. So this is probably running at like 5.1, 5.2 to get this sort of score. Whereas the 9950X to get 42,000 is probably running at like 5.4 on all cores, somewhere around there. So that would be the difference. And then Intel's Core Ultra 9 285K is going to be similar to the 9950X in terms of multi-thread. So it's not quite as fast as a 285K or a 9950X or a 9950X 3D. That one also scores close to like 41,000, somewhere around there in R23. So 38,500 on a dual CCD. I would like to know what the actual clock speed is when it's doing that. It's probably around 5 gigahertz or 4.9 to 5.1, somewhere in there if I had to guess, to get a score like this. But not too bad, though. And then let's see what else they showed here. The setup appears to be the Strix blah, 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 with an XTX and Windows 11. CPU Z shows 200 watt TDP. That lines up. That's what we've heard. And the benchmark overlay shows clocks a little above 5.1. Okay, see, I was right. About almost 5.2 during Cinebench runs. So I said 5.1. I kind of think it's going to be more like 5.1. It depends on your cooling. It always comes down to cooling. What's impressive here is this is on air cooling. This Cinebench score is on air cooling. So if you're on a 360 AIO or better, you're probably going to get 5.2 consistently, 5.25, maybe somewhere around there. With the air cooler, it does hit 95C when doing an all-core Cinebench run, a multi-thread Cinebench run. You will never see this on a single-thread run. Those figures should be treated carefully because there is okay, but it's still, you know, even though they say it's a leak, this kind of lines up. This looks like a real result to me. 38,500-ish on an air cooler, 95 degrees Celsius. That looks believable. The reached power was 216 watts, so that is in line with a 220 watt. Keep in mind that the AM5 socket, the maximum wattage that you can pull through the socket, regardless of how far you overclock, is going to be 230 watts. So this is almost at the limit. It's not quite the limit. You can go about, 15 watts more. So to hit the maximum on the socket. So they didn't overclock. This is like a stock run. I can tell it's a stock run. And then that's pretty much the end of the article. So it's looking like it's going to be equal to a 9950 X3D, a Core Ultra 9 285K, and a 9950X in terms of the multi-thread performance, which is quite good because what that means is that if you're spending the extra money to get one of these instead of a regular 9950X or X3D, you're not losing much in terms of the multi-thread performance. You're not sacrificing anything. There isn't really a trade-off in terms of multi-thread performance. It's a little bit slower, but I'm pretty sure if you use a liquid cooler, because I'm just thinking of my own test results, and I consistently hit like 42,000 on Cinebench R23, but I'm on a 360 AIO with my 9950 X3D. So I'm pretty sure you put this on liquid and it's going to get a higher score because AMD Ryzen CPUs have an interesting characteristic that all overclockers know. And that characteristic is for every 10 degrees Celsius that you can drop the temperature of the CPU, you automatically gain 100 megahertz on the dynamic boost. This has been a thing since at least Zen 3, if not Zen 2. So it is a really interesting feature of the Ryzen CPUs. It makes dynamic auto overclocking a real thing. And if you tune the PBO settings, like if you use Curve Optimizer or Curve Shaper, you can get even better results. Now that's going to take a lot of tuning to get the optimal result, but that is something to keep in mind if you're someone who's interested in overclocking a Ryzen CPU. They really, really benefit from really good cooling systems. So they're still going to run as hot as they can get, but you're dropping the temperature, you're going to get more frequency automatically without even doing anything. So the automatic version in Ryzen Master gets you close. Yeah, but you don't even need Ryzen Master. Ryzen Master is more of like, the way I see Ryzen Master is it's more of like a telemetry thing to verify that it's doing what it's supposed to do. You know, like if you drop 10 degrees, you're going to gain 100 megahertz on your frequency. So yeah, I mean, it's good. You can use Ryzen Master to help you do the overclocking, but I personally just use the BIOS. I'm old school like that. I just use BIOS overclocking, set it and forget it, verify that it works, that it's stable, and it's never let me down. So, but yeah, Ryzen Master is a tool that you could use. So that's pretty much on air. On air, it's like 38,500 in R23. So that is a very good result for a dual CCD chip, because typically, you know, you don't have CCD, you don't have the Vcache, you're going to be getting closer to 40,000 on an air cooler, which is pretty good. So this is a really good result. I don't know. I guess the poll. Let's start a poll. Are you planning to get a Ryzen 9 9950X3D2? So the poll is up. Who here is going to get a D2? I am wanting to get one. I just don't know if I can afford one right now because I bought that Intel GPU earlier this month. I want one to play around with it overclocking. Yeah. This is like a cool tech enthusiast. This is definitely a Halo product, but it's look at the price point. The price point automatically makes it a Halo product. But I think it'd be fun to play around with this, man, because it seems like it's a golden chip. 5.6 gigahertz boost with 3D Vcache is very high frequency, and both of them have the 3D Vcache. What I'm wanting to know is, do both CCDs boost to 5.6, or is only one of them 5.6 and the other one is like 5.3 or something, or 5.2, you know? You're sticking with the 79. You're sticking with the Zen 4 until Zen 6. So it looks like most people are not. Well, okay, 13 votes. We got a lot of people. We got like almost 15 people and only... Or we got almost 50 people watching and only 13 people voted. Most people are saying no. We're going to do some other polls later on the stream for the CPUs that are coming later. And we're going to talk a lot about the CPUs that are coming later. But this one is good for people who are already on AM5. If you're already on AM5 and you don't need to buy DDR5 memory, because I feel like most people that are interested in this CPU are people that are already in the AM5 ecosystem. They want to do a CPU swap and they don't have to buy memory. I feel like if you're someone who is on an older platform, you want to upgrade, but now is not a good time to upgrade. There was an article posted about CPU sales have declined dramatically this year, and it's all because of DDR5. I saw it earlier. Where was it? Was it in here? Oh, we're going to talk about the Pragmata thing later. I remember seeing an article somewhere, I don't remember where, but there was like an article saying that CPU sales, maybe hardware, Verano, Pragmata, MacBook, this 5800X3D. Well, I don't know where I saw it, but you guys probably know what I'm talking about. Like the CPU sales of 2026 have declined so much. Maybe if I search it in here. Mine Factory. German retail reports higher failure rate for, you know. Man, that's like 5 years ago. This is why WCCF Tech search is awful. Their search engine is like garbage. Okay, Mine Factory. Okay, CPU sales. 8 months ago? Like, really? Okay, let's try Tech Power Up. CPU sales? CPU sales decline? PC shipments decline. This is not the one that I saw. I remember reading something that it was like way down. Like, sales of CPUs are way down. Anyway, we can talk about that later, I guess. But anyway, people aren't upgrading this year. This is not a good year to be upgrading, especially right now. And it's mainly because of DDR5 and SSDs. SSD pricing is really bad right now, but DDR5 pricing is really bad right now. And I think that's what's preventing people from upgrading. There's probably a ton of people that are still on DDR4 and they want to upgrade. There's a desire to upgrade, but they just can't afford it. Or they don't want to spend a lot of money on RAM. If you live near a micro center and you're okay with 32 gigabytes of memory, you can get a relatively acceptable deal with a micro center bundle right now, but it's still, I was looking at the micro center bundles. The bundle with the, like with the 90, I think it was the 9700X with a gigabyte B650 motherboard, that bundle last year was like $350. Now it's $550 with the same 32 gigabytes of memory. So the 32, it's like, I can tell the 32 gigabytes of memory is what has increased the price on that. DDR4 went up also, but not as much. It did go up though. DDR4 is definitely more expensive than it was, but it's not. If you compare the price of DDR4 versus DDR5, like 64 gigabytes of DDR4 versus 64 gigabytes of DDR5, you will see that DDR5 is way more expensive. Way more expensive. And if you're trying to get ECC memory, oh boy, it's not good. It is not good. If you're trying to build a server with, you know, like whatever brand of DDR4 you can get DDR5 with ECC for like a home server, it's not good. Okay, but anyway, yeah, this is not what I was looking for. So I don't know what happened to the article. There was a really good article, but anyway, let's look at the Pragmata. So Pragmata is the latest game from Capcom that's out this week. And I think today is the day that it's out, if I'm not mistaken. Or later today or something. So anyway, Pragmata is a game from Capcom. It uses RE Engine. We may look at this. This is the only gaming-related thing we're going to talk about on this episode of Tech Thursdays. Let's go ahead and jump straight to the performance numbers. So we're going to skip all the way to 4K because 4K is the only one that I care about. And we can see here the RTX 5090 does 138 frames per second at 4K maximum settings. This is without ray tracing. The 4090 is 102 frames per second. So you can see at 4K, the 5090 pulls ahead of literally everything else by a significant margin. Yeah, that's like 36 frames faster than the 4090. And then you have the AMD cards down here with the 4080. You know, they're in the like 70s range at 4K. The 9070 is doing 73 FPS. The XTX is doing 79 FPS. And then you go down here. The once mighty 3090 Ti is managing 68 frames per second. Its rival, the 7900 XT, is managing 66. So that's how I verify if the results look accurate. I look at these two numbers, and if these two numbers are close, then I know that these are accurate results. And then everything else, it looks like the 5070 and the 4070 Ti are the lowest end cards that can handle the game at 4K, just above 60, but they're probably going to dip since this is their average. And then everything else is not meant to play this game at 4K. You can see the Intel Arc B580 is doing 32 frames per second. That is actually not that bad. This tells me if a B580 can handle 4K native on maximum settings at 32 frames per second for that console-like experience, at 4K though, that means this game is well optimized. This is a very well optimized game. And then if we look at let's skip over to the ray tracing results. Let's go skip all the way down to 4K. So again, here, the 5090 is far ahead of everything else on this list. But it looks like there's still a lot of cards that can still do 60 FPS or above. Starting with the 9070 and above, all of these cards can handle the maximum ray trace, max settings plus RT. But now the 3090 Ti is no longer able to hold 60 frames per second It cannot hold the line once you turn on RT. It's just too much for the 3090 Ti, and everything underneath it just falls off like a cliff. Cliff as in the guy from Crimson Desert. Okay, let's try path tracing. Wait, oh, they only show it like this? Path tracing, what is this? Path tracing, okay. The 5090 with full path tracing enabled, 62 frames per second. So only the 5090 can handle this game with full path tracing enabled. And this is with Ultra. Oh no, this isn't even, okay, this is DLSS quality. So literally nothing nothing, not even the 5090 can handle this game with full path tracing at 4K resolution. This is DLSS quality. That means the purple bar is a 4K output, but it is actually 1440p upscaled to 4K. So the 5090 at 1440p is doing 62 FPS. 62 FPS at 1440p with full path tracing on an RTX 5090. That is crazy. Let's look at upscaling. So upscales. So what exactly is this? Like, okay, we'll skip over this. All right, so let's see what they say. Oh, VRAM usage. VRAM usage, it looks like you need, if you want to run path tracing, you need over 17 gigabytes of VRAM. 17 gigabytes of VRAM at 4K. 4K is the way to go with the 5090. And you can see FrameGen X4 does use more VRAM when you turn on the frame generation. It's kind of weird how they only show that. I guess they're only showing that for 4K because they believe that 4K is the only resolution worth testing with the FrameGen. The other resolutions are peasant resolutions, so they're not even going to bother. So I like how they do that. And then the FPS analysis, we're comparing each card's performance with the average. Okay, so what does this mean? So Intel A770 is negative 45%. Wait, what does this mean? Relative? What is this? Intel is negative 45? A770 is negative 45? I do not understand what this chart actually means. It's showing the AMD cards doing really, really good. What does this mean? Like, this is basically saying the AMD cards are like super good and the Intel GPUs are super bad. Unless you're playing on a B580 at 1080p, then it's like plus 5% over the average. It looks like the 5068 gig is like good at 4K. I really don't understand this chart. I do not understand what this is showcasing. If someone can explain what this is, then please let me know, because I have no idea what this indicates. If I were looking at this, it just tells me that, okay, AMD cards are good, Intel cards are bad, and NVIDIA cards are average. Like, what? Like, I don't understand how to interpret this data. Anyway, the conclusion says that the review has been updated with a full comparison. Okay, that's what that other chart means. Because Capcom changed reviewing rules and added one GPU tested only. I don't even understand what that means. But anyway, Pragmata is built on everyone's favorite Capcom RE engine, the same technology behind Resident Evil Requiem and the best-selling game of last year, Monster Hunter Wilds. The space station setting plays to the game's strengths. The environments are detailed and atmospheric with impressive lighting and graphics. Character models look excellent, benefiting from RE Engine's strand-based hair rendering system. Yeah, I remember one reviewer was saying that the girl in the game, she looks like a kid with hair extensions. Like she's wearing hair extensions because the hair rendering system is what it is. Overall, the presentation is clean and polished, so you'd expect from Capcom title. Yeah, all the Capcom RE Engine games are really good. Like, I have not seen, the style of game that Pragmata is, it is like a closed, level-based, confined, indoor environment style game. It is not an open world game because we all know RE Engine does not handle open world games well at all. as we have seen with Monster Hunter Wilds, basically all throughout last year, it took them a whole year to fix the performance on Monster Hunter Wilds, but they did fix it. And then the year before, Dragon's Dogma 2 was just as bad. But that game was a single player game, so it wasn't as bad. Like, it didn't require fixing. But it would be nice if Capcom did try to fix Dragon's Dogma 2, but it is what it is. Anyway, Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Pragmata, all these indoor environment, these level-based games, RE Engine truly shines in these type of game worlds. So that's why the visuals look as good as they are. Capcom invested heavily in the development of their own in-house engine. That is the RE Engine. Also, the official name of it is actually Reach for the Moon. That's why the logo is literally a hand reaching at the moon. But because everyone calls it the RE Engine, aka the Resident Evil engine, that's kind of the nickname that it's gotten, and everyone seems to refer to it like that. But anyway, in terms of, let me see what they say here. One significant issue is the built-in TAA, which is very poor. The image flickers, even when standing still. Using DLSS with DLAA or quality mode produces dramatically more stable image. Even FSR 3 at balance looks better than native TAA at run. I'll have to verify that when I look at this game. Textures are of good quality and high res most of the time, while environmental geometry is just... The one thing I noticed about their TAA, though, sometimes their TAA implementation results in dithering effects, but I've never seen it look really, like, flickery or aliasing. Maybe it depends on certain textures in the game. But it says the details and characters are excellent and can match what we've seen in Unreal Engine 5 without the terrible performance of Unreal Engine 5. So there's no noticeable shader compilation stutter. There's on start, there's a 30-second compiling shader screen. Okay, that's pretty standard stuff for these DX12 era games. And then you can see there's lots of difficulty levels, all that good stuff. Upscaling, frame gen, everything is in there. No Intel XESS. So unfortunately, this is another game that does not have Intel XESS. Capcom is not very kind to Intel GPUs. I've noticed a lot of like Japanese developers and Japanese game engines just seem to ignore the existence of Intel graphics cards. We saw this recently when we were testing the B70 last weekend and the weekend before with the Katana engine. We were looking at Neo 3 and more recently Fatal Frame 2. Both of these games are brand new games from 2026 that feature a Japanese in-house engine from Koei Tecmo that Team Ninja uses, and it is called the Katana engine. And oh boy, does the Katana engine just straight up hate. It despises Intel graphics cards for whatever reason. The XESS support is poor. The games just run horribly. You have to literally run the game at like 720p if you actually want to turn graphics settings up. So it's just really, really bad. Or you got to run it at 1080p low or 1080p medium at best on a B70. So if you guys are interested in that, check out the live stream from last weekend and the one before, because we did a lot of extensive testing with Intel's Arc Pro B70 and with a lot of different games. I think I tested on average like 10 different games. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But yeah, it just seems like Japanese developers just don't believe that Intel has GPUs or something. Like, and then it's like when someone tells them, "Oh, there's Intel GPU. What about Intel GPUs?" "Oh, what? That's cool. No one uses those. Don't use it. Don't use it." So that's kind of the response. Crimson Desert is not a Japanese game. I mean, that's a Korean developed game, and it also straight up just completely ignored the existence of Intel graphics cards. So hardcore to the point where when the game launched, you couldn't even launch the game if you had an Intel GPU. Now, they kind of remedied that, but there was good reason why they kind of locked it down. Check out the live stream that I did with an Intel GPU running Crimson Desert to see why. Now, I've heard that they've recently, like, the latest driver, like, it works, but we haven't gotten a chance to test that, but I will look at that at some point. FrameGen is available, supporting AMD and NVIDIA. Ray tracing, path tracing are controlled by separate on-off toggles. Ray reconstruction is supported, but locked behind path tracing. So the only way to get ray reconstruction is to turn on the path tracing mode. You can't disable ray reconstruction without disabling path tracing. So blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's kind of like if you don't have a 5090, you don't even bother with path tracing. That's basically what this sounds like. It says here, only the 5090 clears 60 FPS. Crazy stuff. Hardware requirements are very reasonable on RE Engine, much better than what we've seen, especially on Unreal Engine 5. At 1080p, virtually every card can clear 60, even a weak 3060 with 71 FPS. The RX 7600 does 81 FPS. The ARC B580 manages to tie the RX 7600 at 81 FPS. No problems. Only the ARC A770 falls short at 37 FPS, and it gets worse with ray tracing, where the A770 crashes when loading into the game at 2 of 3 resolutions. Interesting. So it seems like developers pretend that Alchemist doesn't exist. Like, what is an A770? I've never heard of that. You know, like, what is that? Is that like a concept? So, but the B580 is good. It seems like they acknowledge Battle Mage's existence at least. So that's a positive note, I guess. AMD cards perform particularly well across the board. The 9070 XT, the 7800 XT, the 7900 series all run above their typical expected FPS rates in this title. Okay, I guess that's a reference to that chart that they showed earlier, where a lot of the AMD cards are doing like super good for whatever reason. All right, but okay, I say for whatever reason. It is no secret that RE Engine actually prefers AMD cards. You can go back and look at some older titles. You can go look at Street Fighter from 2023, I believe. And then there was some other games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Some of those games were even bundled with AMD GPUs back in the day. So yeah, RE Engine plus Radeon is actually really, really good. I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that Capcom designs the games for the shaders in the PlayStation 5. That's literally their top priority. So maybe there's something behind that, like as a reason. I don't really know, but I assume that's the case. So VRAM usage is manageable. Okay, so unless you're turning on path tracing and all that bells and whistles at 4K, it is very playable on a lot of GPUs. So that's good. I didn't expect RE Engine games to be bad, poorly optimized. This is well optimized. It looks good. The gameplay is probably very good. We showed the demo earlier this year, so it seems like it's going to be a pretty good game. And it is a game that has been long awaited, so we may check it out this weekend. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. So it looks like the poll, I'm going to close the poll. 37 people voted, and most people voted no. Okay. So I'll be interested to see how you guys vote on some other CPUs that we're going to talk about. So let's skip on over now to a new upcoming CPU that is very, very interesting. So Intel Core Ultra Nova Lake S desktop core configuration Surface. I kind of think this is not like the first time we've seen these. Core configurations of Intel's next generation Core Ultra Series 4 were leaked by VideoCard Z. These processors, I don't know how to say this, VideoCard Z. I guess VideoCard Z for people outside of the USA, or it's VideoCard Z. I don't know. Anyway, these processors will remain disaggregated tile-based chips. So they're going with the chiplet / tile-based design, similar to Arrow Lake S. So let's take a look. These chips introduce low-power Island E cores, also known as LPE cores, to the socketed desktop platform. The new processor will be designed for LGA 1954, which will be significantly different from the current LGA 1851, which is the Arrow Lake socket. That is the Z890 platform, while retaining cooler compatibility. So if you're somebody who bought into Arrow Lake when every reviewer told you not to do so, this is the reason why they were telling you not to buy Arrow Lake, because Arrow Lake was a big, fat waste of money. Looking at these, this is going to be the real deal. Check this out. Starting from the left, we have 8 cores, 8-core CPU, 4 P-cores, 0 E-cores. This is very interesting. No E-cores, but only 4 P-cores. And then 4 low power E cores. So these are like cell phone cores. You got smartphone cores that are x86 capable on this CPU. On die L3 cache type, on die, they're all on die. 2 XE3 cores. 3 means celestial. This will be the first type of CPU, unless Panther Lake. Can someone remind me real quick, does Panther Lake have celestial in the integrated graphics? Either way, this is going to include celestial integrated graphics. This is the 3rd generation of Intel's graphics architecture. 24 lanes of PCIe Gen 5. This means that Intel will now be equal to AM5 in terms of Gen 5 PCIe lanes, because currently those of you on AM5, unless you don't have an X870 or an X670E, if you have X670E, X870, or X870E, as a true enthusiast should, you will be benefiting, I guess, B650E. B650E also has 24 lanes of Gen 5 bandwidth. So you've already been benefiting from all the bandwidth of Gen 5 and PCIe. But now, Intel will finally match AMD in terms of the Gen 5 lanes at 24 lanes. The NPU 6, Intel insists on including an NPU, a neural processing unit. This is basically silicon that's taking up space to give you Microsoft Copilot Plus capabilities. So if you use Linux, this thing is completely useless, and it's a waste of silicon, and it is a waste of space that could have been given to something else. But they insist on putting this on a desktop part. Actually, I don't mind this, to be honest. I actually like that Intel includes this. If you really, really like Copilot Plus, this is worth using, I guess. So Copilot Plus demands a certain spec, and that spec, I believe, is 40 TOPS for the NPU. That is something that Arrow Lake currently does not offer. Arrow Lake only has like a 12 top or 13 top NPU. It's incapable of handling the demands of Copilot Plus. But this new Nova Lake will be Copilot Plus certified. So all those AMD AI PCs, Intel is coming to take that reputation from AMD as the AI PC, especially on desktop, because now they're going to get the Copilot Plus certification from Microsoft. And then on top of that, this is the part that I find crazy. So 2X Thunderbolt 5, 8Ka USB 4.0 version 2. This is the 80 gigabit USB 4 interface. So dual Thunderbolt 5. That is pretty interesting. What I don't know is if this is integrated Thunderbolt 5 or discrete Thunderbolt 5. Integrated Thunderbolt 5 is superior to discrete Thunderbolt 5. Discrete Thunderbolt 5 means that the motherboard, in order to support this feature, the motherboard will have to include a chipset from Intel, typically a JHL 95 9550, I believe, is the chipset from Intel that enables dual Thunderbolt 5 interfaces. I have an entire video on this subject. I added Thunderbolt 5 to my Arrow Lake Core Ultra 9 285K. So I have already been enjoying Thunderbolt 5 on my desktop, my Intel desktop, and I've also been enjoying RDIMM as well on that computer. So this is something that this will also carry over. So it'll also support RDIMM, Thunderbolt 5, although I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure this is going to be some kind of discrete Thunderbolt 5. I highly, highly doubt. Let's put it this way. I will be very impressed if this is integrated Thunderbolt 5. I highly doubt this will be integrated Thunderbolt 5, but I will be very impressed if they have Thunderbolt 5 integrated on the CPU. If it's integrated, that means it doesn't use PCIe lanes to give you Thunderbolt 5. That is the benefit. And because it's direct to the CPU, it's lower latency and it is actually better performance than discrete Thunderbolt 5. Dual channel DDR5. So it looks like it's not going to be quad channel like Strix Halo or Threadripper. It's going to remain dual channel like a mainstream desktop system, which is very, very interesting because if you look at this chart, on the right-hand side of this chart, they've got some crazy core counts. Now, I know most of the cores are E cores, but they've got some really insane 52-core CPU over here. It's 16 P cores plus 32 E cores plus 4 low-power weak cores. And that's a lot of cores on a mainstream desktop. 52 threads on a mainstream desktop. And they got 3 different types of cores, and it's still dual channel DDR5. So, yeah, that's interesting. And it looks like it can go up to 175 watt TDP. I don't believe this for a second. This is probably going to be, this 52 core is probably 350 watt TDP at full load. I'm going to guess, just because of that core count being as high as it is. Maybe 250, but I think it'll be 250 minimum, 350 more realistically. At full load on that. But yeah, it's got a wide range. You can see this socket's got a wide range. You got like some weak 8 core over here. You got some big 52 core over there. But another interesting thing is some of these CPUs, in particular the 24 core and the 52 core, they are featuring the big LL cache. So they've got the last level cache, which is Intel's answer to the AMD X3D capabilities. So it looks like Intel will have some X3D equivalent type CPUs, but it looks like they're only doing it on the super high end, like 24. It looks like 24 core has got it, or no, 28 core has got it. And the 52 core. The 52 core does not look like it's going to be cheap. That 52 core looks like that's going to be like probably $900 or more. It might even be more than 900 because look at that's a lot of cores, man. So, but I don't know, man. Intel might be trying to undercut. This would be at least $700. I'm going to call it right now. The 52 core will be no less than $699. It'll be $699 minimum at launch, if not more, because that's a lot of cores. And they're touting that big LLC. So this is going to be an expensive CPU for mainstream desktop. I feel like most of the gamers are going to pay attention to the 28 core BLLC. So this second one from the right here, I feel like this is the one that the gamers are paying attention to because this is the one that has 8 P cores, just like all the current Intel Core Ultra 7s and the Core Ultra 9, and previously the i9s were 8 P core, the i7s were 8P core. So this is going to be probably the Core Ultra 9. I don't know what the 52 core is going to be called. This might be the Core Ultra 10. Who knows? Like, this will be some special name. But the 28 core could easily be the Core Ultra 9 for the gamer. 16E cores, 8P cores, that's your typical Core Ultra 9 285K right there. But now they've bolted on some smartphone cores. You got 4 smartphone cores on there as well. So that makes it that technically brings it up from 24 core, 24 thread to 28 core, 28 thread, because there is no hyperthreading on these Nova Lake CPUs. No hyperthreading. So what you see is what you get. They only have one hand. One hand. They're not dual threaded. They don't have hyperthreading means you have 2 hands. Hyperthreading means you have 2 hands. These cores only have 1 hand. They can only do one thing like that. So the P core has the big hand. The E core has the medium hand or the small hand, and the smartphone core is like 2 fingers, you know, trying to like pick up stuff with 2 fingers. So that's what the differences are. But yeah, so it's 28 core, 28 thread, 52 core, 52 thread, 28 core, 20. So 16, 16, 8, 8. That's how it is with these Intel CPUs. Nova Lake, it's confirmed already from the CEO. He did this a couple months back when he was asked at I think an earnings call or something. So yeah, there's no hyperthreading. He believes that they could get hyperthreading in the future. They'll consider it, but they're definitely not doing it for Nova Lake. But still, I mean, 52 core, 52 thread, that's a lot, man. So this 52 core is gonna go toe to toe with the Zen 6. Big boy. The big boy Zen 6. Intel is vying for that multi-thread crown over AMD's Zen 6 with that 52 core, 52 thread. So if now it's time to bring up Paint. Now we can bring up Paint now that I have this. So we've got Intel Core Ultra X9 495K, Core Ultra X9 485K, Core Ultra, well, let me see what this other one is. What was this other one called? Let me bring this over here. These are the hypothetical names. I don't know if these are the actual names, but these are good enough. All right, this one would be Core Ultra 9 485K, Core Ultra. They've got to have more. This is weird. Core Ultra 5 465K. 445K, Core Ultra 3, 425K. So this is the SKUs that they've shown. This one is 50. This is 16P plus 32E plus 4 LPE. This one is 16. No, this is 8P. 8P plus 16E. Maybe this is the Core Ultra 7. Who knows? Maybe this is the 7. Maybe this is the 7. I don't know. Because there's no... Wait, no, it doesn't make sense. Because then this guy would be it. I don't know. Alright, I'm just going to put 9 for now. I don't know where the 7 is. 7's missing. I feel like there's another one somewhere. So this one would be 4 LPE as well. Then you have the 4P plus 16E plus 4 LPE with no big LLC. The big LLC, they're gonna name it something special. They're gonna put like X9 or something. And then the 445K will be a Core Ultra 5, I'm guessing. 4P plus 8E plus 4 LPE. And then this weak sauce one over here, 4P plus 4 LPE. So, okay, the pricing. This one is probably going to be like $8.99 or something, or maybe even more. I mean, I don't know. That's probably going to be really, really, really expensive. Might even be like $9.99 or more. This one is going to be like $6.99 or $5.49 or something. And then, yeah, no, probably $6.99. And then this one is probably going to be $5.49 or something. Oh, hold on, yeah, that makes sense. And then this one is going to be $3.99. And this one is going to be like $1.99 or $1.49 or something. I don't know. It'll be somewhere around there. All right. Maybe even $1.29. Okay, so there's some gaps. Already I can tell you there's going to be more than just these. There's definitely got to be more than these. First of all, we're missing the Core Ultra 7. The Core Ultra 7 465K. This should be something similar, I guess. Like, it does seem like all of them are going to have 4 LPE. So I don't know how Intel's going to chop this one up, but I can't see them doing like this, calling this a Core Ultra 7. They could, because they're currently doing that right now. Because you guys look at that Core Ultra 7 270 plus, 270K plus. That is the same exact core count. That's basically 8P plus 16E. So it's equal to a Core Ultra 9. So maybe this is the 7? Maybe this is the 7? This doesn't exist. So if these are all the SKUs, then this is kind of have to be the 7, although it's going to be kind of awkward if they do it this way. I just feel like there's some space to fit some other thing in there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the lineup. Maybe they're going to reserve the 9s. They're going to call them like X9s or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I can already tell. 52 core. 52 core is like no joke, guys. That's going to be like a lot of money. That's going to be a lot of money. Because it's a lot of cores. So don't expect that to be on any kind of like budget. Or like some kind of budgeteer thing. This is 28 core with no 3D V cache. It's actually not 3D V cache. It's last level. It's like in a separate little section on the side. And then this one is 16. And this one is like 8 core. Yeah, so this one's terrible. Okay, so that's the lineup. That's the lineup for the Intel LGA 1954. This will launch Q4 of 2026. Oh, I just revealed when it's actually launching. Okay, so end of this year, basically. Expected around October, November of this year. LGA 1954. You heard it here first. All right, so then now we have the competition. Zen 6. Zen 6. So, Ryzen 9 10950K or X. Okay, wasn't that already like an Intel thing? I don't know what they're gonna call it. It might just be 10950X 3D. Okay, or maybe D2. I don't know. Maybe it'll be D2. I don't know. Because if Intel's going all in, I don't know where this LLC thing is gonna go. Like, I don't know if the E-cores have access to it. But if they do 10950X 3D2, you guys know what this is. You guys know what this is. This is 24 core, 48 thread. 48 threads. And this will probably be like $999. You know, it's probably going to be like $999. All these CPU prices are going insane crazy. So then Ryzen 9 10950X. Maybe they'll do a single CCD. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Who knows? 24 core, 48 threads. Big fat 24p cores. This will probably be $699. So you can see it's all going to line up in the same kind of scenario. So then you got your 10950X. This is again a 24 core, 48 thread, but this one has no X3D. So this one's going to be like, if that's 700, this will be 599. And then this one might even be 549. And then you have the Ryzen. How will they chop this up? So this is... honestly, I kind of think they need to, like, not call the... They got way too many Ryzen 9s. I'm just telling you right now, like, they got way too many Ryzen 9s. So, Ryzen 7? No, Ryzen 9. Ryzen 9 cut down. The one that, like, no one pays attention to. So, the 10900X. This one is going to be... How would they chop that up? 6 plus 6, right? So, if you do 10, 20C, 40T for like for 499, somewhere around there. Then you have the Ryzen 7 10 850X or 800X 3D. This is 12. Hold on. Is that right? I don't know what this... I don't know if this is right. This could be 20 or it could be like 16. I don't know. I don't know how this one... This is the one that always is confusing. This is like the hardest one to guess because I don't know how they chop them up. But anyway, if this is a single CCD, this will be 12 core, 24 thread. And this will be the gamer one because this one is a single CCD. So it's got no dual CCD. But because they're moving to a 12-core CCD, you'll be able to get an X3D CPU that has 12-core, 24 threads, and it's a single CCD. So this one might be like the most popular gamer CPU, and it's probably also going to be priced appropriately at $449. It's kind of like how they did the current 9800X 3D. So, AMD doesn't always use odd numbers. No, they could do 10 because they did the 2700X. They did the 2000 series. They also do the even numbers. Typically, they do them for mobile, but I think it's going to be 10. I think it's going to be a 10 series. Ryzen 7 10800 or 10700X. They'll also be 12 core, 24 thread. This one would be $349, and then it just kind of goes down from there. Then you have your Ryzen 5 10600X. This will be a... this is where it gets kind of weird, because is this going to be -4 cores, or is this going to be -2 cores? This could be a 10 core. This could be a 20 thread. I don't know. I got to think about this for a second, because a Zen CCD... A Zen CCD today has 8 cores. And then if you want to get a Ryzen 5, they turn off 2 of them. So they turn off like 25%. So would it really be 10 though? It would be more like a... I don't see them doing a 9 core. That wouldn't make sense. It would be like 10 or 8. What do you guys think? See, the AMD ones are kind of harder to figure out. The Intel ones are also really hard to figure out. I'm not convinced that we've seen all the Intel ones. I'm still not convinced that the Core Ultra 7 is the 8 core, like a 28 core. I think the Ultra 7 might be something like a 24 core or a 20 core or something. I don't know. I kind of think that Intel... I think 28 core, 28 thread on an Ultra 7 is too much. This will be interesting, though, because I could see this being an 8. I could see it being an 8/16. Maybe it would be an 8/16. And then this would be like... 279 or something, and then Ryzen, well, we'll just stop there for now. So something like this, or 249 or whatever, something like that, you know. So it seems like they could go with a Ryzen 3 at some point, and that would be your like sub $200 option, because Intel, it looks like Intel has a sub $200 option. Just guessing off the core counts, because it comes down to the core counts. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is what we're looking at. They're gonna be at parity though, for the most part, at the high end. You guys can see Intel is gonna have a slight thread advantage this time, or as technically right now AMD has a thread advantage, because if you look at current generation is Core Ultra 9 285K. This is 8P plus 16E. So this is 24 core, 24 thread versus Ryzen 9 9950X, which is 16 core, 32 thread. So to the operating system, the Ryzen CPU has 32 cores, and the Intel one has 24. So currently AMD has a higher thread count. The roles are going to reverse with the next generation of CPUs. I actually didn't need to delete those. You can see Intel's going for the big thread count, 52, and they're doing it without hyperthreading. How are they doing it? They're loading up a whole bunch of E-cores. A lot of E-cores. How is AMD doing it? Traditional SMT. Each core has two hands. Each core on an AMD core has two hands. Intel only has one hand now, as of Arrow Lake. So they can only pick up one thing at a time. They're single-threaded. They're not dual-threaded cores like the AMD ones or the old Intel ones. Or at least the old Intel P cores. Like a 14900K. A 14900K, the P cores had two hands. But then Intel decided to chop one hand off for the Core Ultra series. So the Panther, Lunar Lake is going to inherit that. Only one hand for every core type. And the LPE has two fingers. It's like a thumb plus an index finger to pick things up. That's your LPE. So that's the easy analogy that I can give you on how these things work. For LPE, what do you mean LPE? LPE is not going to have threads to the OS. What's the purpose of the LPE? If the LPE, why do they mention the 4 LPE cores if Windows doesn't even have access to it? You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So let's do another poll now. Let's do it. This is going to be a more interesting poll. Are you planning to get... Are you planning to upgrade to Nova Lake? All right, here it is. Who here is planning to upgrade to Nova Lake in Q4 of this year? With DDR5 prices being what they are, anyone planning to get one of these 52 core, 52 thread, or that 24 core with the X3, or not X3D, the last level cache? If it's better than my 9800X3D, yes. Oh, it's going to be better in multi-thread. I can guarantee you that. It's definitely going to be better in multi-thread. Whether it's better in gaming, I don't know. That remains to be seen. But it'll definitely win in multi-thread, I can tell you that. With that many thread cores just thrown at the problem. Man, okay, so it looks like we got about a little over more than 1/3. So far, we got 40 people watching and only 13 people voted. LGA 1954, end of this year, holiday season. That's when it's coming out. It's on track. It's on track. There's a lot of stuff going on with Intel right now. They're preparing. They're stocking up all the ammo. You know what I'm saying? This I'll just say right now, this Core Ultra 7 270K Plus, this CPU that came out recently, Core Ultra 7 270K Plus, equals 11th gen all over again. It's literally like Rocket League all over again. Remember what I said, guys? 2026 for technology, 2026 equals 2021. We're literally living in 2021 minus the pandemic all over again. And remember what happened in 2021. What happened in 2021? 2021, 11th gen launched in the first half of the year of 2021. What launched in Q4 of 2021? Who here remembers? It was one of those classic Intel double launch years. This was LGA 1200. The last CPU of LGA 1200. You guys remember. I mean, I was definitely alive in 2021. So I remember. All right. LGA 1700. 12th gen Intel. Alder Lake. Launched in Q4 of 2021. Brand new socket. Brand new motherboard. Z690. This one was Z590. So you can see double launch in 2021. This is why I'm saying we're literally repeating 2021 all over again. The only difference is Ultra 7 270K Plus is on the same existing socket, just like 11th gen was using LGA 1200, which was the socket that was debuted with the 10th gen the previous year. So it's literally a bait and switch. If you get Ultra 7 270K Plus and you buy a brand new Z890 motherboard right now, you are literally screwed big time, because at the end of the year, the big boy, the good stuff, the truly new socket, brand new features, Thunderbolt 5, blah, 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 RDIMM, this, that, whatever, not quad channel, quad rank, 4-rank DDR5 support. There are going to be some new things that this new Intel launch is going to bring. It will support Thunderbolt 5, aka USB 4, version 2.0. We'll just say version 2. It'll support that. More widely available compared to what you can get today on Arrow Lake. And then it will get RDIMM support, which is already on Arrow Lake, but it'll also get 4-rank DDR5 support. This will be a first 4-rank DDR5 support. Is also a brand new addition on LGA 1954. So if you buy into the Core Ultra 7 270K Plus, you are gonna screw yourself over big time. This is why I say it's better to wait. If you plan to upgrade, you always upgrade. If you're doing a full new build, you always do it at the end of the year. Because you could end up buying last gen, and then I don't know, depending on who you are, you might not care. But because typically the older generation has a more mature BIOS, a more mature platform. So there is an argument to be made in favor of buying the older generation if you are upgrading, because more stable BIOS, less bugs, more consistent behavior. A lot of times new platforms at launch always have some kind of issues. You guys remember Arrow Lake had all kinds of issues at launch. Zen 4, the Ryzen 7000 series, had all kinds of problems at launch. In particular, like memory training and all this other stuff with DDR5. Because that was AMD's first generation of DDR5 memory controllers. So, Intel, Alder Lake had good performance, but when it launched, first of all, it launched with DDR5, and DDR5 was stupidly expensive back then at launch. Now it's even more expensive than it was when it launched in 2021, which is ironic, but no one was buying DDR5 to pair up with Alder Lake. I bought Alder Lake at launch. My i7 12700K, it's got AVX 512 capabilities. But, I didn't buy DDR5 in 2021. I ain't paying that much money for DDR5. No way. I paired it up with DDR4. Tried and true. And it worked. There were some BIOS bugs. There were bugs with, anti-cheat, thinking that I was, hacking the game or whatever because I have E-cores. Games not knowing how to handle E-cores. That was a big problem with Alder Lake when it launched. I remember Final Fantasy XIV would literally just randomly crash if a game thread got stuck on an E-core for an extended period of time. That was a deal breaker for a lot of people. So, there were problems, man. And that was when Endwalker launched too. And you had 90-minute login queues. Imagine trying to play Final Fantasy XIV. You log in, you get in, you play the game for 40 minutes. Then the game crashes you to desktop because of an Arrow Lake E-core. And now you got to get back in line for another 90 minutes. Yeah, man, I was there. I know I'll never forget that traumatizing experience. So anyway, that was the launch of Alder Lake. That's all I remember from the launch of Alder Lake. Other than DDR5 being stupidly expensive and having to update the BIOS from Gigabyte 5 or 6 times in the course of 2 or 3 months. But yeah, that's the reason why it's not always the best thing to go with the latest and greatest, because you end up being the beta tester for a lot of these platforms. So, but as a true enthusiast, though, there's always the desire to be on the latest and greatest thing, especially the flagship. But the way things are getting now, with prices being what they are, I mean, look at this. This is going to be some stupidly expensive stuff. And it's weird. I mean, I know they're not going to be Threadripper prices because they don't have Threadripper PCIe lanes. So the upper bound limit on these flagships are going to be around $1,000. But yeah, that kind of makes sense. It seems to be where we're going. And the D2, which is launching next week, is a very good preview of what these next generation CPUs are going to cost at the flagship tier. So keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to close the poll. It's 10 minutes ago. It looks like 1/3 of you are planning to upgrade to Intel's Nova Lake, and 2/3 of you are planning to skip Nova Lake. So now we're going to do one final poll. Are you planning to upgrade to Zen 6 when it launches? Which we don't actually know when Zen 6 is going to launch. Technically, Zen 6 should launch in the second half of this year. But I don't know if it is. I don't know, man. We could be waiting. AMD could be cooking some stuff, but I think the biggest change with Zen 6 is going to be the ability to offer 12 performance cores on a single CCD. So you are going to get that 24 thread on a gamer X3D CPU, which is going to be really, really nice at that sub $500 price point. So I think that's still going to be really popular. I think Intel might be shooting themselves in the foot. They want to offer like an equivalent to X3D, but it looks like Intel's going for that high dollar spend. You know, like if you ain't spending $700 on a CPU, you're probably not going to get the Intel one, and that's where I think AMD might still have an advantage. Because unless Intel plans to offer a BL, like a low last level cache on a lower core count CPU, but I don't know if they'll do that. Based on what we've seen, it seems like they're only offering that to the true ultra enthusiast who wants that multi-thread performance. You have no sympathy for any enthusiast that bought into current gen Intel? Well, I don't know, man. The Core Ultra 7 27K Plus, I don't really consider that an enthusiast part, to be honest. I feel like Intel is trying to not. I think Intel's trying not to do enthusiasts dirty, because I think they know they've got a real winner on their hand with the upcoming Nova Lake lineup. So they're not trying to overextend into Arrow Lake. They're not trying to like sell a Core Ultra 9 to entice enthusiasts to buy the Arrow Lake. So I think that's the true reason why there's no Core Ultra 9 this year for Arrow Lake refresh. So maybe I kind of think that's the reason. That's the only reason that makes sense to me logically. But yeah, I think it's going to be some pretty fierce competition, man. There's going to be some fierce competition. This is going to be kind of like Zen 4 versus 13th gen all over again when both generations are out. When we've got LGA 1954 plus Zen 6 or Nova Lake plus Zen 6. For people that didn't know what this was, that's Nova Lake. Nova Lake. In particular, Nova Lake S. But yeah, man, CPUs are always interesting to talk about for me. Like, I like talking about CPUs because when with CPUs comes motherboards. And we're all about motherboards on this channel. So now we're going to talk about motherboards. So Intel will offer Thunderbolt 5. I assume it's going to be a discrete chipset option. They will offer QDIMM support and 4-rank DDR5 support. Here is what I expect Zen 6 to include. I expect Zen 6 to offer discrete USB 4 version 2 via some kind of chipset. They should be able to offer this on their motherboards. This way, they have parity with Intel's Thunderbolt 5. They also need to support QDIMM just like Intel. I expect Zen 6 to have QDIMM support. If they don't have QDIMM support, it's not the end of the world, because from my experience testing QDIMM on the 285K, it doesn't actually really help that much. What it does allow is it allows the CPU, regardless of the silicon lottery, to be able to hit speeds like DDR5 8000 relatively reliably. Because this is something that you could not do with a 14900K, well, the 14900K was better than the 13900K. My 13900K could not do DDR5 8000. I could do DDR5 7800, but I could not do DDR5 8000. My 285K can do DDR5 8000 with or without QDIMM. But what QDIMM does is it makes it easier for a poorly binned memory controller to handle higher DDR5 speeds. For that reason alone, I expect Zen 6 to support QDIMM DDR5. All right, and then on top of that, I don't see why they can't offer 4-rank DDR5 as well, because 4-rank DDR5 literally means when you have a stick of RAM, all this means is that you have one group of sticks is 1 rank, another group of sticks is another rank, and then on the back side, so on the underside, on the opposite side, so like on the back side, you have another group of another rank, like rank 3, for example, and then you have rank 4 on the back side of the RAM. That is all 4-rank DDR5 means. So they're just cramming in more ranks onto a stick of RAM. So if Intel's going to support that, there's no reason why AMD can't support that. Honestly, it is much, much harder to support QDIMM than it is to support 4-rank DDR5. 4-rank DDR5 is more of a manufacturing thing. Like SK Hynix and Micron and Samsung are starting to create these higher dense memory kits, and those are the ones that are going to be 4-rank capable. So if you want to run, for example, like if you want 256 gigabyte DDR5 or 512 gigabyte DDR5 or even 1 terabyte DDR5, if you are someone who really wants these kind of memory capacities, that's where 4-rank DDR5 makes sense. If you're running 32 gigs or 64 or 48 or 96, 4-rank DDR5 is completely irrelevant in this conversation. So that's what 4-rank is for. It's for high density, which is going to be terribly expensive. So QDIMM is what I expect. Discrete USB 4 version 2. So basically, I'm expecting both Intel and AMD to bring forth the next generation of USB 4. Intel will call theirs Thunderbolt 5. AMD will call theirs USB 4 version 2. They are identical things. We know that somewhere in the wild, as of today, there is some company, I don't know who it is, someone, somewhere, is capable of manufacturing a USB 4 version 2 controller. Because there is a company out there called Minis Forum. Minis Forum. Let me find the thing. Let me find it real quick. And people who are familiar with this probably know exactly what I'm going to talk about. Minis Forum, Ryzen AI Max. Yeah, this. Let's bring this up on the screen. So, last year, Minis Forum, and actually now this year, they have a Strix Halo mini PC, the MS S1, features USB 4 version 2, dual 80 gigabit per second USB 4. This is USB 4 version 2. How they are delivering this, I have no idea. Because somehow they have a manufacturer that is providing them a USB 4 version 2 controller. I don't know if they're literally just buying Intel's Thunderbolt 5 controller, throwing it in this system with Strix Halo, and because it's Thunderbolt 5, they're not getting the certification from Intel, so they're just calling it USB 4 V2. I don't know if that's what's going on, because that's technically what happened with X670E and any motherboard that offered USB 4 back when Zen 4 launched in 2022. If you're someone who bought like a Crosshair Hero, like an X670E Crosshair Hero, for example, or an ASRock Taichi X670E, you have an Intel Thunderbolt 4 chipset on your AMD AM5 motherboard, providing USB 4 functionality. So maybe Minis Forum is taking an Intel Thunderbolt 5 controller, throwing it on here and calling it USB 4 80 gig because they can. You can totally do that. So I don't know, but I expect the motherboards, regardless whether they're AM5 or AM6, regardless, the motherboards that launch alongside Zen 6 should give users, there should be some level of high-end motherboards that offer USB 4 version 2. That's the 80 gigabit, because this is the real deal. This is like the one spec that finally allows external GPUs over PCIe tunneling to run at speeds that are similar to what you can get on Oculink. So that is very, very good, because that means, with you guys, any of you who have messed with Oculink, you know that Oculink is not plug and play. You can't unplug your Oculink cable while your mini PC or your docking station or whatever, your eGPU is running. You're going to mess something up big time. But with USB 4 version 2, you're basically getting performance similar to Oculink with plug and play convenience. This is why this is a big deal. Now, not everyone's going to use this, but this is something that AMD has to offer. They cannot show up with Zen 6 and be like, yeah, we don't have USB version 2 or USB 4 version 2. It is what it is. If they do that, they're going to be in big trouble. The reviewers are going to start recommending Intel just because of USB 4 version 2. Like, that'll be one of the reasons. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. We're going to see, like, feature compatibility. Like, both are going to have RDIMM. Both are going to have USB 4 v2. Kind of like what we saw. It's like a repeat of Z790 versus X670E. Only now, instead of USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4, it's USB 4 version 2 and Thunderbolt 5. So I don't know, guys. I think it's going to be pretty interesting, because it's been a long time coming. I feel like if you're somebody who upgraded in 2022 or 2023, these two generations that are launching later this year or maybe early next year, in the case of Zen 6, these are worthy upgrades. Most likely going to be worthy upgrades. They're giving you a platform update. But if Zen 6 is AM5, then you technically don't even really need to get the new platform, unless you really want these things that I just mentioned, namely these two. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see Intel and AMD CPUs, because I'm pretty hyped for these two. I think both of them are going to be really, really good compared to what is available, especially from Intel, because right now Intel's CPU lineup is kind of whatever. You know what I'm saying? But AMD just needs to bring platform parity and match up Intel in terms of like RDIMM and USB 4 v2, and that's basically all they need to do. They just need to deliver that performance uplift that we expect, throw some X3D out there to the gamers, and call it a day. Intel needs to deliver on multi-thread, which I think they're going to do. And, you know, it's platform parity is kind of a carryover from what they have today in terms of the platform, because today they already have RDIMM. They technically have Thunderbolt 5. It's not available on a lot of motherboards, though. There's only like a handful of motherboards that actually have Thunderbolt 5. But they do offer Thunderbolt 5 add-in cards if you have a motherboard that supports one, like I do. But anyway, what do you guys think? So it looks like 52% of you are planning to get Zen 6. 48% of you are not planning to get Zen 6. I know about a third of you are planning to get Nova Lake, which is interesting. It seems like more people are looking forward to Zen 6 compared to Nova Lake, at least from the people that have voted. But there's a lot of people that are skipping out both. So there's a lot of people that said no to Intel. There's a lot of people that are still saying no to Zen 6, which indicates to me that a lot of people are probably pretty satisfied with where they're at with their computer right now. All right, so we're going to end the poll here. And I kind of want to do one more. Which CPU platform do you currently use? I'm not going to have a lot of options here because YouTube limits me to like 4 responses. So I'm going to do AM5, AM4, LGA 18, or no, LGA 1700, and is it going to be none of the above? I feel like none of the above is not a good option. I guess people who don't have any of these choices just don't vote, because I want to try to get as many options as I can. So we're going to do this. Okay, so this will be the last poll. Which CPU platform do you currently use? AM5, which is basically Zen 4 or Zen 5 or their X3D variants. AM4, which could be Zen 1, Zen 2, Zen 3, or Zen 3 X3D. And Zen Plus is also in there. So it's like 4 different generations of like Zen. And then you have LGA 1700, which would be 12th gen, 13th gen, and 14th gen Intel CPUs, which are all still relatively good right now. And then LGA 1851 is Arrow Lake S. So that's your Intel Core Ultra 5, 7, and 9. Wow, a lot of people are already on AM5. A lot. That means a lot of people already have. Well, okay, 12 people voted. That means quite a number of you already have DDR5. So that means you don't have to worry about buying memory if you want to do an upgrade. Looks like one person is on LGA 1700, so that could be Alder Lake 12th gen, or Raptor Lake 13th gen, or Raptor Lake Refresh 14th gen. Wow. 15 people out of 15 people. Well, it's only out of 15 people. I kind of want to get at least like 20 votes. I want to get at least 50% of the viewers. But so far, AM5 is dominating, man. 80%. 80% on AM5. Oh, but yeah, but your main platform is the oh, but you've got like 2. So how did you vote then? You have two AM5s and one LGA 1700. So I guess the AM5s win out by majority in that scenario. You're thinking Zen 7 will be the most. Zen 7 will definitely be on a new socket. Zen 7 will definitely be on AM6. I do think that the 12-core CCD for Zen 6 is going to be very good. I really think that this will be the first time in a long time that AMD finally changes the total number of cores they can offer on a single CCD for the desktop platform. Now, on the mobile platform, AMD has already been able to offer 12 cores, 24 threads on a monolithic design. This is the reason why Strix Point is so good. Strix Point and now Gorgon Point for this year. So Ryzen AI 300 and Ryzen AI 400. Those CPUs for laptops are really nice. For gaming laptops, they're really good because they don't waste battery. They have really good battery life while delivering really good gaming performance when paired up with something like an RTX 5080 laptop GPU, which we've done videos on in the past. I'm a huge fan of those 12-core, 24-thread, single CCD on a laptop. So I can't wait to see a desktop 12-core, 24-thread with X3D, man. I think that's going to be really good. I think that's going to be the sweet spot for most gamers. Monster Hunter Wilds. Yeah, and remember what I said about open world RE Engine games. The only way Monster Hunter Wilds and Dragon's Dogma 2 will have much, much better performance is going to be brute forcing through those games with more powerful IPC on the CPUs. So I can't wait to go back and play Dragon's Dogma 2 with a Zen 6 or a Nova Lake, whenever those CPUs show up. I can't wait, man. We're going to be playing Monster Hunter. Because here's the crazy thing. I'm going to guess that Zen 6 launches around Monster Hunter Wilds expansion. You guys who are big Monster Hunter fans, you guys know Monster Hunter Wilds is going to get an expansion early next year. So we're not going to be doing a lot of Monster Hunter Wilds content for the rest of this year because now it's all said and done. I might stream it occasionally, but not as hardcore as I did last year. But next year there's going to be a ton of Monster Hunter Wilds content on this channel. We will be doing CPU benchmarks for the Monster Hunter Wilds expansion. Zen 6 will be covered. Most likely Nova Lake will also be covered. And all the old Zen 5, blah, 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 all those, I'll be covering those guys as well. 13900K, all those guys, they're all going to be on the list. So 285K for the one person besides myself that has one of those CPUs. We'll be covering all of them. But Monster Hunter Wilds will probably launch Zen 6. If it's Q1 of 2027, which I'm thinking Zen 6 is probably going to be a Q1 2027 launch, Monster Hunter Wilds expansion is probably also a Q1 2027 launch. So, yeah, it's going to be really good. This year is not a really... Speaking of gaming, this year is not a really good year for gaming. It's a bad year for computer hardware. It's also a bad year for gaming. There's not a lot of really good games that I'm interested in that are coming out this year. I know there's Forza, isn't Forza 6 coming out? And then Saros is coming out in a couple of weeks. Pragmata is out now. We covered Resident Evil Requiem. That was a really good game. There's not a lot, man. I guess GTA is supposed to come out in November or something. But I'm not a big fan of GTA. I know it's going to be a huge launch. It's going to be console exclusive. So maybe we'll play it on PS5 Pro. I don't know yet. Wolverine is coming out. PS5 exclusive. Lords of the Fallen, man. Lords of the Fallen 2 is one of the only other games that I'm really wanting to play for this year. That's pretty much it. So, not a lot of crazy games. You just played Unreal Tournament 2004. All right, well, it looks like 21 votes. So we're at least around 50% of the viewers. So, all right, so 60 of you are on AM5. That's a lot of people on AM5, which means all of you are on DDR5. Okay, I just thought of another question I want to ask. So we're going to end the poll so I can ask my final question. The final question. Oh, not Q&A. Where is it? Poll. How much RAM is in your PC? And the amounts are going to be 96 gigabytes plus 64 gigabyte, 48 gigabyte, or 32 gigabyte. $96 gigabyte plus allows for anyone who has 128 or 192 or whatever. 48 is kind of the gamer number, in my opinion. It's the optimal gamer number, especially if you have an X3D, a 9800 X3D, for example. 48 would be ideal. 32 is good. 32 is good, but I don't like 32 because, I multitask way too much. I've got way too many tabs in the browser. When I'm playing games, it just eats up all my RAM, and then the game itself is running the RAM. So to me, 32 is minimum spec. But in this market right now, I I'm not going to judge anybody who is stuck on 32 just because DDR5 is priced so terribly right now. Personally, I'm running 96 gigs myself. So just to show people, I guess for the viewers, we can bring up Task Manager real quick just to show the computer that we're running, that we're streaming on. There it is, Task Manager. There we go. Okay, so this is the computer that I'm streaming on. You guys can see this is an MSI X870E Godlike motherboard with an AMD Ryzen 9 9950X3D, 16 core, 32 threads, 96 gigabytes of DDR5 at 6400 mega transfers. That's 4 sticks of memory, because I always do 4 sticks of memory at 6400. No problems. We got to have all that RGB goodness, tons of SSDs, and then we've got an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5090 in here with 32 gigabytes of VRAM, an AMD Radeon integrated graphics, and an Intel Arc Pro B50 with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So I literally have NVIDIA drivers, AMD drivers, and Intel drivers all installed on the exact same computer. So how about that? This is the streaming computer. This is what I call the Tech Thursdays enthusiast build. What if you're sitting on multiple extra DDR5 modules? Well, I don't know. Are you planning? Okay, but here's the thing. If you're sitting on extra DDR5 mods and you've already like maxed out your motherboard, like you're already doing 4 sticks of DDR5 and you still have extra DDR5, I mean, you could either sell it for profit, sell your extra for profit right now in the market we're in, or you could literally build another computer and not have to spend money on memory. I mean, you know, like there's a lot of stuff you could do. You could build a home server with that. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that. But it looks like not surprisingly, most of you have 32 gigabytes. So 42% of you have 32 gigabytes, which is totally fine in the market we're in right now. And the second, so this is a little bit surprising, although it's not super surprising. The second highest amount is 96 gigs plus, which I think, personally, I think 96 is the sweet spot for an enthusiast system that doesn't want to worry about system memory and Windows scheduling problems. Because the more memory you have, the less likely Windows is going to screw up scheduling, because it can just throw everything in the RAM like a giant slow cache. And that's better than having to use a page file. I'll tell you that. So, all of a sudden, some people went 64 gigs. 64 gigs all of a sudden jumped in front of 96 plus. Considering that, yeah, I think a lot of people. So I think most of my viewers are gamers. They're the enthusiasts. They're hardware enthusiasts / gamers, or they're the hardware enthusiasts / home lab type demographic. And I feel like the latter is more likely to have that 96 or 128 or 192 or 256 gigabytes of DDR5. Have I ever tried Unify routers? Not Unify routers, but Unify switches. I did a whole video about Unify switches last year as I upgraded my home network infrastructure. But I have not used Unify routers, though. Yeah, if you have like a Proxmox server or a NAS or something, you know, yeah. But the NAS doesn't need a lot of memory, though. A server needs a lot of memory. If you're doing anything with VMware, like you're doing, what is it? VMware Workstation or VMware, what is the VMware Pro? You can use VMware for free nowadays. If you're on Windows, and most people that run VMware are on Windows, you have to, as the hypervisor, you have to disable memory integrity on Windows to allow nested VM in VMware. But yeah, for anyone who's like trying to do like virtual routers, for example, you want to test like virtual router topologies and different system architectures, network architectures, that kind of thing. You know who you are. You're probably using VMware, whether you're running like GNS3 or CML or whatever it is, or EVE-NG, you know, all those type of things. If you don't know what I just said, just ignore what I just said. It's not for you. I mean, it's whatever. We're just talking about some specific things for the home lab enthusiast crowd right now. Because we talk about gaming, sometimes people are not in tune with gaming, so they don't understand what I'm talking about. So now we're going to talk about some other stuff that is completely unrelated to gaming. But yeah, that's... You have true NAS, and the thing has like 45 gig of RAM. 45 gig of RAM is not a lot of RAM, though. When I say a lot of RAM, I'm talking 96 gigs or more. I don't consider 48 or 45 a lot of RAM. 64 is kind of like what I call medium. It's like medium spec memory. You have 64 gig RAM. Yeah, but what I'm saying is 64 gigs is not a lot of RAM. I guess in this market, if you have to buy RAM, it's a lot of RAM, but realistically, it's not a lot of RAM for a server. You know what I'm saying? Server, I will not do less than like 128. What I personally run, if I'm doing like a virtualization type, a server for virtualization, like VDI stuff, I'd be running like 128 or more. But honestly, I don't have more than 128 in a system, in a server, or like a high-end workstation right now. And I'm not about to go and try to buy more. So I'm basically capped at 128. I could do 192 on my AM5 system, but I don't really want to do that. I don't like doing dual rank on AM5 or on Intel because you can't do high speeds. That's the only problem, because it's not quad channel. What system could take 256 gigs? An actual server, like an actual Xeon server or an Opteron. Opteron was barely even around 10 years ago, so yeah, I would just say like a Xeon would do it. But it would not be an actual desktop. It would be an actual Xeon server, like an E5. For server, you don't do well. Yeah, but you can still do. You can still try for 5200, 5600. On a server with DDR5, you can do... Typically, you're going to be running 3600 DDR5 or 4800 DDR5. But I have seen 52 and 56 run a lot better because you get lower latency. You're going to be running typically the same cast latency as if you're on DDR5 4800. My home server for a long time was running 128 gigabytes of DDR5 at 3600 JEDEC speed, and I was able to get it to do 5200 reliably with a bunch of tweaks that I showed in a video that I did a couple years back, but I would not recommend it. Yeah, I agree with you though. If you're looking for a stable server, DDR5 4800 is kind of the upper bound limit on actual 24/7 stability. Or you could get like JEDEC DDR5. If you have JEDEC DDR5 5600, that would also work. That's going to have pretty high latency, but it would also work. But I guess people don't care too much about the latency on a server, so it's whatever. And also, my servers are running spindle drives. I've got like 3.5 inch. I got like 6 hard drives in my server. I don't know. I've got only one NVMe in it right now, and that's the boot drive for the hypervisor. But yeah, if you guys are interested in these subjects, we could probably do some videos on these. I just feel like if I put a lot of time and effort into these type of videos, I'm not going to be rewarded by the YouTube algorithm because I think the majority of my audience is more of them are like the enthusiast that also plays games and are not super interested in virtualization technologies or server type use cases. So, I mean, we could do that. I don't know. Like, I was thinking of making a second YouTube channel that's more of like IT type topics, but I don't know. It seems like it's a lot of work to manage two channels, and I kind of want this channel to get to a certain size before I consider making a second channel that has a completely different target audience, if that makes sense. Just looking into collaborating with Wendell. Um, yeah, that would be cool to work with him on some of these projects. I don't know. So I don't know what exactly he does outside of YouTube. I know he has some kind of he's Wendell has some kind of like a consultant type business that he runs outside of YouTube, but I don't know how much of his time is dedicated to that versus YouTube. Like I have no idea. I know that he does more than just YouTube though. He's not just 100% YouTube. Kind of like me, but it's like my YouTube channel is so small. It's like most of my time is still not YouTube, if that makes sense. Typically only Tech Thursdays and the weekly YouTube video and the typical weekend live stream is what this YouTube channel is. Well, doesn't play games. Yeah, he doesn't really play games. I mean, I only really play games on the weekend though. I don't play games during the week anymore. I just don't have the time anymore. So when you guys see me live stream, that's typically when I'm playing games. Like the 4 hours or so that I stream on the weekend, on either a Friday evening or a Saturday evening, that's when I play games. So I just don't have the time to play games during the week anymore. It depends. Sometimes I do, but does Unify allow you to do CLI? Like, can you access a CLI on a Ubiquiti switch or router? Yeah, I know he has an IT consulting company. I don't know what it's called though. You can SSH into it if you want. What does the command line look like though? Does it look like Cisco or does it look like some whatever? Is there some kind of Linux bash shell? Or is it the CRUD style? CRUD style meaning like create, update, I forgot what the R stands for, or delete, you know what I'm saying? You guys know what I'm talking about? CRUD, create. It stands for create. What is this one? Remove? Update. Oh, read. Yeah, read. Read and delete's the last one. I always forget the R. Create, read, update, delete. Is it this style CLI or is it like more like a Cisco, like a traditional, command based Ubiquiti? Oh, I know all about the Tech Syndicate times. It wasn't late 2000s, dude. It was like sometime in the middle of 2010s. He was with Tech Syndicate in like 2012. You know how I know this? Because he was with Tech Syndicate with Logan and those guys during like FX 8350 days, like AM3 plus. Even through like Haswell, Broadwell. So he would have been with Tech Syndicate through 2014. I forgot when he left, actually. It was probably around, was it like Zen 1? Was it after Zen 1? I think Wendell only left Tech Syndicate in like 2018, 2017, somewhere around there. It was somewhere around there. You can look it up, but it was somewhere around there. It was not it was not 2009. It was definitely sometime between 2010 and 20, um, no, it was definitely somewhere around like 2016, 17, 18, 19. It was pre-pandemic. I know that. It was pre-pandemic, but it was sometime after Intel's fourth gen Haswell. I can't remember if it was like around Ryzen Zen 1 launch or after it or before it. That's why I don't remember. It was somewhere around there when he spun off and left and went and created level 1 techs. But yeah, this channel is more of like a mini level 1 text channel in terms of what we do. I do think like my content is more like Wendell. I like to do Wendell's type of cover. Like his video topics are the same. There's a kind of overlap between me and Wendell in terms of what we do outside of YouTube, what we focus on in our YouTube videos. We're not super heavy focused on gaming, although I do think I do cover gaming a lot more than he does. He covers more of like the IT. I cover more of the gaming. But we are more like, this is kind of, we just give you the info as is, right? Like there's no opinion. It's just, this is the info. This is what it is. Like these are the specs. These are the estimated prices based off of historical pricing and where we kind of know the industry is going. And then, because I feel like a lot of gamers don't care about Thunderbolt 5. A lot of gamers don't care about QDIMM, you know, like they don't care about these things. But the home lab, the workstation, the developer, these guys will probably want Thunderbolt 5 even if it's on a desktop because it gives them more capabilities, external storage options. You can run docking stations. You can run a bunch of monitors daisy chained off of a single cable. You can basically multiplex video and data and networking signals all on one USB-C cable. Those are the sort of things that Thunderbolt 5 provides. So, but you know, most gamers don't know that. So that's why my content is definitely more like level 1 techs. But I do think I focus a little bit more on overclocking occasionally. We do overclocking content. I don't like to do a lot of overclocking content though, because I feel like oftentimes I make an overclocking video and people who can't get the same results because they didn't win the Silicon Lottery, they just think the video's like fake news or whatever. But, you know, if it's stable, I show it. If it's not stable, I'm not going to show it. There's a lot of videos that I never uploaded, never published, even though I worked for hours on the video, just because the results were not, they weren't conclusive in terms of stability. This is another reason why I don't like overclocking videos, because I think the system's stable, and then I get ready, I'm finalizing to put all the data and then do the script, like, okay, this is how you set the PBO, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, something's randomly unstable. You know, like Forspoken crashes, you know, like 13 minutes in the benchmark, on the benchmark loop. And it's like, okay, well, that basically proves that I'm not stable. So this content is useless now. Or I have to lower the max overclock or change the undervolt and then have to redo everything. So this is the reason why there's not a lot of overclocking content on the channel. Because it's so annoying to get 100% stability sometimes when you're trying to push it to the edge, to the limit of what your chip can do. It's fun to do it. It's not fun to make a video about it. So all those overclockers who make YouTube videos consistently, like Scatterbencher, he's probably like the best one in terms of his guides and the way he organizes the data, how he like explains everything. That guy's like really good, but he's also a world-class overclocker who actually competes on the global stage. So he really knows what he's doing, you know what I'm saying? So Yeah, but that's why there's not a ton of overclocking content on here. But, you know, I do practical things like SoC voltage. Like, what's a safe SoC voltage? 1.26 SoC. You can do 1.26 SoC if you require it. If you don't require it, you shouldn't run the SoC that high. I personally would try to find the lowest stable SoC voltage. So for reference, to give you guys an idea, and I think I said this in the video I made, my 9950X3D requires 1.23 volts VSOC to be stable in games when running DDR5 6400. My 9950X with no X3D handles 1.2 volt VSOC. But I would recommend for most people, try to stay under 1.27. Ideally, you don't want to go above 1.25 if possible. But 1.2 is good. 1.25 is okay. To me, that's a little bit on the high side. That's why I pushed for the maximum stable for me. I was running 1.25, but then I found that 1.23 works on my 9950X3D. So that's what I use, because the lower is always better. But if you're not stable, you have to go higher. That's the thing. Unless you're running JDEC, then you can run 0.9. But this is required for like Expo or XMP, just so people know. And by the way, this is the voltage. VSOC is the voltage that can cause your CPU to die. So all those people that are scared of ASRock, like ASRock motherboards, ASRock motherboards. Okay, ASRock, I'll let you guys in on a little secret. Earlier BIOSes, so basically 2022, 2023, so in those years, and I would say probably early 2024, AM5 BIOS was automatically setting 1.3 volts VSOC for when you loaded Expo or XMP, both. And this is what was killing the CPUs. Some CPUs can't tolerate 1.3 volts for a long period of time. It'll degrade the CPU. And you know, the crazy thing is back in like 2022 and early 2023, there was no limit on what you could set your VSOC. So you had people that were setting like 1.35 VSOC. That is a guaranteed way to shorten the lifespan of your CPU. That is definitely going to shorten the lifespan of your CPU. Now, if you guys remember, ASUS had exploding sockets in early 2023. And the root cause was 1.35 volt VSOC, or basically VSOCs that were over 1.3 volts. So what did AMD do? They made BIOS updates that didn't let the user go above 1.3 volts VSOC. This was like the maximum you can do now. And even this number is not long-term safe from my point of view. And this is the number that ASRock was setting on their early 2024 BIOSes and their 2023 BIOSes after AMD made the change. And that is the reason why you had the occasional CPU basically just die randomly on the socket. The socket looked fine, but the CPU was dead. It was because of the VSOC. This is something that no one really talks about, but this is the actual reason why the CPU dies. So this is the reason why I tell people, and I made a whole video about this recently, don't try to stay as close to 1.2 if you're running Expo or XMP. Stay as close to 1.2 as possible. If you can go under 1.2, that is even better. but most CPUs need to be around 1.2 for actual stability. Like personally, I don't have a very good 9950X3D when it comes to the SoC. I require 1.23 volts for DDR5 6400, and that's the reason why I run 1.23 volts. But 1.23 volts is totally fine. So I'm not worried. My CPU is not going to explode. By the way, I have a 9800X3D. So for those curious, I have a Ryzen 7 9800X3D with ASRock Nova X870E. Yes, I run my 9800X3D in a Nova motherboard, and it'll always be in the Nova motherboard. I'm never going to remove it. And guess what? VSOC equals 1.2 volts. So I am not worried. I'm not going to lose any sleep. I have no anxiety. My 9800X3D has been in there literally since we live streamed that PC build, and I've had no problems because I know that 1.2 volts is not going to kill my CPU. It's that simple. So this is why they say knowledge is power, because if you know these things, you can ignore all the noise on the internet because you know that all those people that are just spouting nonsense regarding ASRock motherboards are completely wrong. Yeah, and you know why they couldn't kill the CPU, though? I bet the reason why they couldn't kill the CPU was because they were using the new ASRock BIOS. Basically, they were using some kind of 2024 or 2025 BIOS, probably a 2025 BIOS. And I'll tell you right now, when I load XM or Expo or XMP, I'm actually running XMP DDR5 8000. So for those wondering, I run DDR5 8000 with my ASRock Nova, 48 gigabytes. And when I load the XMP profile, ASRock automatically sets VSOC to 1.2 volts. That's probably why they're not going to be able to kill the CPU. Because the VSOC is not getting high enough. That's why those other YouTubers can't kill the CPU. They have to go up to like 1.3, 1.35. Then they might run into a problem. But yeah, you'll never see the problem if your VSOC is like 1.2, which is pretty much what ASRock automatically sets the VSOC to on any modern BIOS from last year and this year. That's what they do. And DDR5, like, dude, you're never going to see the problem because it's like, that's the root cause right there. If you're running 1.2 or 1.25, you're not going to be able to kill your CPU. The voltage is too low. Do I run everything behind a cert? Yes, I do. Why would I not do that? Why would I have thousands of dollars worth of computer hardware and not run it on a surge protector? Now, I don't have everything on a UPC. I don't have a lot of UPCs. I think only Threadripper is on a UPC. But yeah, none of these desktops, like this desktop that I'm using right now, this is not on a UPC, but it's on a surge protector. But yeah, there you go, man. I mean, that issue with CPUs dying, that is an issue that was already figured out in like 3 years ago, 2023. So the fact that people on Reddit are still talking about it, I mean, I don't know if people are just negligent or lazy to update BIOSes. They have a motherboard from like 2023 with like an old BIOS, and they just refuse to update the BIOS for whatever reason. So they put themselves at risk of these problems, not knowing that when they load XMP or Expo, an old BIOS might set 1.3, putting them at risk, you know. 1.3 won't necessarily kill the CPU. It could, though. It could over like several months. If the CPU is just not Like if it's not, you know, like the better bin CPUs, if it has a lot of leaky voltage and that kind of thing, 1.3 volts on a leaky voltage CPU, that could end up killing it after like 6 months. So that's probably what it is, man. That's gotta be what it is. It makes sense. The physics checks out. What, that's a good question. I don't remember the brand. I bought it from Micro Center like a year and a half ago. I'd have to look it up again. I think it was. Hold on. Let me see. It wasn't like any high-end one. I think it was just an APC, like APC. I'm trying to find the brand. It was just, I think it was just some generic APC brand at Micro Center. I think like a, I don't remember the exact model. I have to go and look at it. It was either like a Cyber Power or an APC. It was one of those. Anyway, so how much RAM do you... Okay, so it does look like, surprisingly, with 38 votes, almost everyone watching voted. So we're going to close the poll. This is a pretty accurate poll because a lot of people actually voted. So most people are still on 32 gigabytes and at 34%. So about a third of you are on 32 gigabytes, 29% of you on 64 gigabytes, 21% of you are on 96 gigabytes or higher. So that includes 128, 192, and 256. And then, and if you have a home server or whatever, and you run like 512 or whatever, that would be in there as well. And then 40 or 16% of you have 48. Personally, for a gaming PC, like for an exclusive gaming PC, I really think 48 is the sweet spot. If you can get if you can find 2x24 at a good deal, I personally would recommend 48 gigabytes. If you're planning to build a new PC this year, target 48 gigabytes. Because if you can stomach having to spend a ton of money on 48 gigs, which is still going to be significantly less than 64 or 96, but still getting you, I think, the best bang for buck when it comes to a gaming PC. You're not going to be worrying about Windows Scheduler and paging files and running out of RAM at 32 gigs because you're at 48. You can also double up in the future. So when RAM prices crash next year, like next summer or whatever, you can then go from 48 to 96 because you can buy another identical kit, plug it in, and now you have 4 gigs of RAM running at 96, which is very, very good because those are all single rank DIMMs. The reason why 48 is the magic number is because 2 sticks of 24, a 24 gig DIMM is a single rank DIMM. Those are the best overclocking DIMMs. So the single rank DDR5 comes in a 16 gigabyte stick or 24 gigabyte stick. So if you have two 16s, that gives you 32 gigs. This implies 32 gig. This implies 48 gig. This is why I prefer 48 gigs, because this is the highest capacity with 2 sticks of memory that are on single rank. Single rank is the one that can allow for higher speeds. Dual rank is typically not going to run super high speeds. You're not going to go far above 6,000, for example. So this is the reason why for an exclusive gamers build, 48 gigs I think is the sweet spot today. The reason why I don't like 64 is because 64, first of all, it's significantly more expensive because it's dual rank. So if we're talking dual rank, that's going to be your 32 gigabyte DIMM, which implies 64 gig, and your 48 gig stick, which implies 96 gigs across 2 sticks. So if you're doing dual rank, I recommend 96. This is why I don't actually do 64 and 32 anymore. I personally, when I think of 32 and 64, I think of DDR4. When I think of DDR5, I think 48 and 96 because those are the more optimal choices. Now, Intel claims, in the leak at least, that they will support quad rank, 4 rank DDR5. 4 rank DDR5 is going to be like 4 rank, or I guess we'll say quad rank is going to be a lot. That's going to be like, what is it even going to be? Like, because even now we have dual rank 64 gig sticks now. Yeah, technically we have that actually. So hold on, before we do this, there is a 64 gigabyte stick, implies 2 sticks total 128. That is still a dual rank, but they're claiming quad rank, which would be, oh, we're topping over the chat, so I have to go down here, I guess. Quad rank is more like, what would that be? Like 96 gigabyte stick? Implies 192 gigs on 2 sticks. And then you would have a 128 gigabyte stick, which implies 256 gigabytes. And it would just go up from there. So quad rank is what Intel will support. So basically, Intel Nova Lake will be like a good server option without a bunch of PCIe lanes, because you can easily run the big, super duper expensive memory without having to buy ECC RAM. So it could be an interesting like HEDT, which leads me to my other point that I wanted to say regarding Nova Lake. I do feel like with these type of core counts, Intel is scaling to a point where they've got your typical, regular, run-of-the-mill mainstream user, but then they've got like these crazy, like especially this one, 52 core, $1,000 52 core. This feels so much like an HEDT. It's almost like Intel wants to do an HEDT platform, but they don't want to spend the R&D to bring it to the consumer market. So they're just going to leave Xeon there as it is. And they're going to try to introduce this thing, which is really interesting because this is a lot of cores. 32 E-cores. That's a lot of cores for a mainstream platform. They're just flooding the mainstream market with cores. And they're claiming quad rank support. So, and the thing is, I'm going to ignore the 4 LPE, for instance. So we're going to do 48 times 4. So for me personally, if I'm actually going to build this top SKU in November of this year via a live stream build, if we do this, I will need to have 192 gigabytes of DDR5 for this desktop. So I can see why they are offering quad rank. Quad rank only makes sense for this top end SKU. Because remember the rule of thumb, if you're building for application optimized performance, for every, or it's like you do 4 gigabyte RAM per core. I don't believe in 4 LPE. Those are useless garbage. So we're only going to pay attention to the 16P plus 32E, implying 48 core, 48 thread, which implies, this implies basically 4 times 48 equals 192 gigabytes of RAM required for optimal Windows scheduler behavior. These are things that no one actually talks about. So if you truly want to be that Intel fanboy enthusiast and you plan to spend $1,000 on the CPU, plus all the money required for that 192 gigs of RAM, you're going to need 192 gigs of RAM for the recommended memory spec for that flagship Core Ultra 9X. So that's how much RAM I plan to put with the Core Ultra 9 495K. Whatever that top end Intel thing is, it's got to have 192 gigs of RAM, if not more. But 192 gigs will get the job done. But that's kind of crazy. That is kind of crazy, actually, that it needs that much RAM for it to perform optimally. But imagine having to spend $1,000 on a CPU and then having to spend, I don't know, $2,500 on 192 gigabytes of DDR5. This is why quad rank makes sense, because you could go with 2x 96 gigs for rank DDR5. That would get the job done. So basically, this is the reason why they're supporting quad rank. It's for those top end SKUs. You can buy a 2-stick kit that's 192 gigs. I can see it now.
Can you explain why using 4 sticks of RAM has to be slower speed on any MOBO than 2 sticks of RAM? Good to see you and thank you.
4 sticks of RAM has to be slower speed on any motherboard. That's a good question. It doesn't have to be slower. It's only slower when you're running 2 DPC. 2 DIMM per channel. If you're running 1 DIMM per channel and you have a quad channel system like a Threadripper system, for example, you're going to be able to do the exact same speeds. Like literally, Wendell did a video showcasing Threadripper running 4 sticks of memory at DDR5 8000. But Threadripper is the only platform today that can do that. But yeah, to explain the question, to answer the question, I'm gonna have to make some space because we're literally out of space. Hold on, I gotta clean some of this up. We'll get rid of this 11th gen nonsense. We don't need any of this stuff. We don't need the VSOC, all these things. So let's delete all of this. Okay. So the reason why is the following. When you have a memory channel, so let's say we've got the CPU over here, or the memory controllers over here. You go to the memory, you have dual channel. You have channel A and channel B. And then you have daisy chain topology. Most motherboards, actually every single AM5 and Z890 motherboard today are all daisy chain topology. That means that you're going to have one stick here followed by another stick after it to terminate the wire. So you have to terminate the line so that it goes. So typically, the way it works is this is going to be A2. This is going to be A1. Is that correct? Yeah. And then B2 and B1 like this. So that means we send electricity. So let's say you buy a kit of memory. You have 2 sticks of RAM. What does the motherboard manual tell you to do? Install it in A2 and B2. Why does it tell you to install it in A2 and B2? Because when you turn on the computer, the voltage is going to run, and it goes like this. It'll go like this. The voltage is, electrons are flowing. Electrical current is flowing. It goes, it flows into that memory stick. It does the things it needs to do in the DRAM chips, and then it returns back. It returns back to the memory controller, completing the electric circuit. So the loop is complete. Same exact behavior with the second stick of memory. This is 2 sticks of RAM. So now you want to add more RAM. You want to put, okay, before we do that, why do we install in A2 and B2? What happens if I install my 2 sticks in A1 and B1? The way it says, do not do this. Why you do this? Do not do this. The reason why is because it's not going to work. When you plug them in the wrong slots, and then you proceed to turn on the computer, and what happens? Electricity starts flowing. It flows. Electrons, current is moving. It moves. And it's like, oh, there's an open circuit. There's nothing here. I'm going back to the CPU. Thank you. Let's go back. It doesn't even reach the memory. Your computer doesn't post. Nothing happens. You get like a postcode error indicating your RAM is faulty or whatever, or there's no RAM or whatever. RAM not detected, blah, blah, blah. I forgot what that Dr. Debug code was for that. But this is the reason why you do not plug your 2 sticks of memory in A1 and B1. Because you literally have an open circuit. You literally have nothing connecting your RAM to your memory controller. Because A2 and B2 are literally in the way of the daisy chain breaking the circuit. This is why you must install the 2 sticks in A2 and B2. Now, what about if we do 4 sticks? So you do 4 sticks. So the question was, why using 4 sticks of RAM has to be slower speed on any motherboard? Okay, it's not necessarily slower speed. The key here to clarify, the key point to clarify here is the maximum potential speed. Not that it has to be slower, because I'm running 6400 right now, and I'm running 4 sticks. So, like, I literally have A2, B2, A1, B1 all populated, and I'm running DDR5 6400. That's not slow. 6400 is not really a slow speed. But the trick is the maximum capable speed. So, for example, DDR5. Let's try to run. Let's just do it with 4 sticks. So let's just show 4 sticks. So I got 1 stick here. I have 1 stick here. I have another stick here, and I have another stick here. So I have all 4 sticks. Okay, what happens? The voltage runs. It goes like normal. It goes into this guy. It goes, and then it's like, oh, there's still interconnects. There's still electrical contacts because I detect B1 is present. So it flows. It'll flow to B1. He has memory. It's able to complete the circuit. So it's able to do the whole circuit, and then it comes back on the return path. So it's like it returns, back to the CPU memory controller. So you have a complete circuit. So it works. Same thing with A channel. B channel, A channel, same thing. Now, when you run more memory, the integrity of the signal is harder to maintain due to the sheer amount of circuitry. All of these pins, all of these contacts, they introduce something called, there's a concept here called parasitic capacitance. Parasitic capacitance. This results in electrical noise, aka electrical noise on the circuit. And this is going to be more pronounced the more memory you have. So you could have 4 sticks, you could have 8 sticks, you could have 12 sticks, etc. It doesn't matter. The more you have, the harder it is to filter this out. The more challenging it becomes. This is the reason why the motherboard quality matters, because the motherboard layers help isolate these parasitic noise or this electrical noise from the line. And when you have 4 sticks of memory, there's more. The effect is amplified. And that is the reason why it is more challenging to run 4 sticks at a higher speed than 2 sticks. So the question now, I hope that answers the question actually. So hopefully that answered your question. It's a great question though, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have been wondering this. So the question now, here's a more advanced question. Why does Threadripper not have this problem? Because Threadripper can easily do 4 sticks at DDR5 8000. Why is it that Threadripper can do that and Intel Core and Ryzen can't? Why is that? What's different about Threadripper? Threadripper quad channel. There you go. So Threadripper, let's delete this stuff. Threadripper's quad channel. So Threadripper, I guess here we're gonna say this is like AM5. But now let's talk about Threadripper real quick. Threadripper is a big socket. So this is, we'll just call this TRX50 for Threadripper. So Threadripper has A, B, C, D. A channel, B channel, C channel, D channel. This is what it means by quad channel. You have 4 physical memory channels. This is dual channel. This is what it means to be a dual channel. You have A channel and B channel. Threadripper has 4 independent channels. That means that there's none of this limitation here. Now, if a Threadripper motherboard has 8 sticks of memory, or 8 memory slots, those could either be wired for 2 DPC over quad channel, which would make it behave the same way this behaves if you populate all 8 memory sticks. Or, alternatively, it could be for octa channel, 8 channel, which is for Threadripper Pro. And that's typically the case for those higher end WRX 90 motherboards. But for TRX 50, it's either going to be 1 DPC or 2 DPC. The example we have shown here is called 2 DPC. Now we're going to show an example of 1 DPC. So why does Threadripper not have this problem? Because literally you have 4 sticks, 4 DIMMs on the motherboard. Each one of them are the limit of what it is. So if you're going to build a Threadripper system, you install 4 memory sticks, like how I've shown in my current Threadripper build. It's very easy. You buy that's why Threadripper, notice guys, Threadripper memory kits are always sold as 4 sticks of memory. You don't buy a Threadripper memory kit with only 2 sticks. They always come with 4 sticks for this reason, because you install each of them in an individual channel. So there's no way to mess it up. You can't screw it up because there's no way it's going to skip over an open circuit. It's always going to be directly connected because you have A, B, C, D like that. And because they're so much closer, you don't have... When we were talking about parasitic capacitance and electrical noise, the question earlier was hinting at, like, why is it slower? Well, it's slower. The maximum potential is lower because the further it has to travel, the longer the wire is. In particular, A1 and B1 are far away physically from the CPU. That is going to amplify and increase the electrical noise. That is the main reason why your speeds with 4 sticks are limited. Threadripper does not have this limitation because Threadripper, all of them are close to the CPU. The electric current flows directly, it's immediately there, and it returns. Same thing with the other sticks. Individual channels for each flow. So this is the reason why Threadripper is a true high-end desktop where you can run 4 sticks DDR5 8000 no problem, because it's physically different from a 2 DPC board of AM5 or on Intel Core. So hopefully that answers hopefully this answers the question. That's a really, really good question. We've explained it in the past, but it is definitely worth explaining it again, just in case people forgot or new viewers are here and they're wondering that. But there's your answer. That is the reason why Threadripper can do high speeds with 4 sticks and AM5 cannot. AM5 can do like 6400 with single rank, because single rank is easier to do than dual rank. Dual rank adds more potential for noise, especially when you go further out from the CPU. BIOS version could make all different. So if you have a this is called a 1 DPC. 1 DPC. 1 DIMM per channel. This is called a 2 DPC. 2 DIMMs per channel. So hopefully that illustrates that point, because I think a lot of people get confused. They're like, what is 2 DPC? What is 1 DPC? What is 1R? What is 2R? What is 4R? These are the things, these are the key points that I think if enthusiasts can understand these fundamentals when it comes to memory, you guys can make a more informed decision, because now you understand the limits of a CPU memory subsystem. So anyway, I think this is a really good discussion point. I'm glad someone asked the questions. I appreciate the super chat. As always, that was a really good discussion point. This might actually be a really good separate YouTube video topic. But anyway, it looks like this is a good stopping point for the stream. Let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to discuss? No, we talked about D2. We talked about Nova Lake, Zen 6. Yeah, the platform capabilities, Thunderbolt 5, USB 4 V2. So I think that pretty much sums it up for this episode of Tech Thursdays. If you're new to the channel, you like these technical discussions, these live Q&A type things, do get subscribed to the channel if you're a new viewer. And hit the bell icon so you get notified when I go live. Typically, Tech Thursdays is consistently... it's always like 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, or 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's the start time for the Tech Thursdays episodes. And then if you do hit the bell icon, you'll get notified when I go live. Sometimes we go live Friday evenings or Saturday evenings, and those are typically gaming focused, where I'm like streaming some kind of game. This weekend we're going to be streaming Pragmata. And we might try to finish Fatal Frame 2 Remake. I really, really want to finish Fatal Frame 2 Remake. But we're going to take a look at Pragmata. At least most of the stream will probably be Pragmata this weekend. And then sometimes we do PC live stream builds. Those are kind of rare. This year it's going to be super rare because, you know, everything's expensive right now. And sometimes we do other stuff like test a GPU. Like last weekend, I tested, or actually, was it 2 weeks ago? Last weekend, but also the previous weekend, we tested a whole bunch of games on Intel's Arc Pro B70. So if you're interested in that type of content, definitely be subscribed.
You should be a PC tech teacher. You really good at it.
PC tech teacher? Is that even a thing? Maybe like an A+ or N+ certified type instructor or something, but I don't know if they cover stuff like this. This is more of like a, you know, this is more of like a lesson in memory subsystems for computer architecture. Make it a thing? I'll have to think about that. I'll probably make this into a video. The funny thing is when I make these things into videos, people who watch the video out of context of like, they're probably like, whoa, what is all this? All of this stuff up here is going to be like super confusing. Like, what is all of this? Are those prices real? Because this is all speculation on the prices. But yeah, so we'll do more of these type of video or discussions. So yeah, if you guys have questions on CPU, memory, whatever, motherboard, keep in mind the motherboard was also a part of this talking point. The motherboard plays a role in this, the quality of the motherboard, for stability reasons. But anyway, guys, I appreciate the feedback. That's going to be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. If you're new to the channel and you like this content, do get subscribed. It really helps me out. If you want to tune into the weekend streams or whenever I go live, sometimes we go live randomly. It's not very common, but sometimes I do. And the only way to know is to hit that bell icon. I don't like to nag people to subscribe to my channel or hit the bell icon. I know everybody seems to do that. This is like the one time I ask you guys to do that if you like the content. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. Thank you all for tuning in. And I will see you guys either this weekend, and if I don't see you this weekend, I'll see you on the next episode of Tech Thursdays. Until then, take care, and I will see you next time. Thanks.